Hi guys, Asian movie recaps here. Today, we'll be recapping another fantastic film. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to our channel so that we may continue to provide movie recaps with plot twists and intriguing storylines. It may only take a few seconds for you, but it allows us to upload daily videos as soon as possible. Let's get started. An elderly man and a student escort girl take on different roles over the course of their unusual relationship. The movie begins in a restaurant. A young lady, Akiko, is on the phone. She tries to convince her boyfriend that she is telling the truth about where she is and who she is with. She gives the phone to her friend Nagisa as proof. Nagisa speaks with him for a while and returns the phone. She talks at length with him and then moves to the bathroom. Nagisa sits and waits for her to come out. She comes out and complains that her boyfriend told her to go to the toilet to prove that she is where she claims. She is approached by a man, Hiroshi, and they talk at length about her relationship. He advises her to end it. He asks if she is available for the night, but she says she can't. Hiroshi puts her in a taxi and he hands the driver a sheet of paper with some money. Akiko plays her grandmother's messages. She is informing Akiko about her movement, her arrival and activities in the city. Akiko tells the taxi driver to drive past the station. She looks out for her grandmother. They continue on their way as she reapplies lipstick. She falls asleep, and when they get to their destination, the driver calls the number which the man had given him, but there is no answer. He goes into a shop and asks for directions, and he is directed to a professor who tells him what he needs to know. The old man heads up and watches from the window as the taxi driver wakes Akiko and directs her up. She goes in and he is on a call. She takes a look around while he is on the phone. When he is done, she greets him. They sit and talk about a painting in his room. He tells her the painting is a famous one and it dates back to the 1900s. They talk about the photo she saw. He tells her it is his wife. She asks him what he does for a living. He answers that he translates books. She tells him a joke which makes him laugh, and then she goes to use the bathroom. When she comes out, she goes into the bedroom. She starts to undress and throw her clothes around. The old man enters the room and asks what she is doing. He says he has made her dinner, a special soup from her town. She says she is sleepy and asks him to come and warm her up in bed. The phone rings and he leaves the room to answer it. The phone in the bedroom rings and he hurries to disconnect it. Akiko is already asleep and he turns off the lamp. The next morning, he drives Akiko to school. She falls asleep during the ride. He wakes her once they have arrived. He tells her he will wait for her. Just before she leaves, she asks for his name and he says it is Watanabe Takashi. She leaves but gets stopped by a young boy. Takashi watches as they argue for a while before Akiko storms off. The young man follows but comes out a little while later. He looks at Takashi and approaches the car to ask for a lighter. Takashi hands him one with reluctance. He uses it to light a cigarette and he moves away. He comes back later and asks Takashi who he is, but Takashi directs the question back at him. He introduces himself as Naoki and Takashi does the same. He then asks who Takashi is to Akiko. Takashi asks what he thinks and he assumes that Takashi is her grandfather, and Takashi doesn't correct him. He asks if he can present himself formally to her grandfather for marriage, but Takashi feels that they are not ready. Naoki tells Takashi that Akiko's phone was off all night and she refused to give him a reason why. He says that she asked him who he thinks he is and punted out that he is not her husband. Naoki says she is right and that is why he wants to marry her. He says that if they are married, she won't have any choice, she would have to answer him. Takashi asks him that if she doesn't answer him, then what happens? Naoki insists that she would because they are married. Takashi tells him that this is why he said he is inexperienced. Naoki asks if being experienced is swallowing a pack of lies, and Takashi replies that it is not asking when you know you may be lied to. Takashi advises him to give up on the idea of marriage. Naoki accuses him of just defending his granddaughter, but Takashi says that he is telling him the way things are. Akiko returns and Takashi tells her to get in the back as Naoki is seated in the front. Takashi asks where she wants to go, but she doesn't answer. He reminds her that she wanted to buy a book and she says yes, she does. Naoyuki says he'll go with them. Naoyuki sees something wrong in the car and asks Takashi to pull over so he can have a look at it. When he steps out, Akiko asks Takashi if he asked any questions, but he hushes her and tells her not to worry, that he didn't tell him anything. Naoyuki gets back in and tells him that the drive belt might snap at any moment. He tells Takashi to drive to his garage and he'll fix it for him. On the way, he calls a worker and tells him to check if the drive belt he needed for Takashi's car is available. He tells Takashi that he had to hit a worker the other day because he showed him a photo and asked him who was on it, and when he said it was Akiko, the worker started laughing and removed his finger from the bottom part of the photo that was hiding a number. Naoyuki shows them the photo. When they get to the garage, Naoyuki apologizes to the person he hit and Takashi asks how he could hit someone that big. Akiko answers that he is a third dan in karate. Takashi asks if she likes that he is strong and she says she used to. He then asks how that photo came about. She says that it is an old photo. She says she did it 2 years ago when she just arrived in Tokyo. She says that she had tried to get rid of all of them, but there might still be a few outside. She adds that her grandmother has seen one. Takashi asks her what exactly she saw in Naoyuki and she says she is not sure. A car pulls up and a man in the driver's seat tells Takashi that he took his course in the police academy about 30 years ago. He offers to buy coffee, but Takashi says he is running late. Naoyuki is done and asks if Takashi would have lunch with him, but he declines. He then requests for Takashi's number, but he says he doesn't have a mobile phone and asks Naoyuki for his instead. Naoyuki gives Takashi his card and makes plans to meet Akiko for lunch. Takashi wants to pay for the repair, but Naoyuki doesn't let him. They leave and Akiko crosses over to the front seat. She is worried and Takashi tries to calm her. He tells her that what will be will be. She says Naoyuki will ask the other man about Takashi and he will find out that Takashi is a professor. She says she told Naoyuki that her grandfather is a fisherman. Takashi tells her that everyone has 2 grandfathers, one from the father and one from the mother, so she could have a grandfather who is a fisherman and another who is a professor. He drops her off at the bookstore and drives off. He falls asleep at the wheels but is woken by other drivers pressing their horns at him. He drives home. A woman tells him not to park so close as she can't see outside when he parks there. He replies that he parks in that exact spot as per her request. After a brief talk, he enters his house. He checks his messages and there has been a mistake in the printing of one of his books. While trying to resolve that, the call is cut off. The phone rings again and he answers, believing it is the printing person. But it is a woman. It sounds like she is crying. He picks up the receiver and asks who it is. He realizes it is Akiko and he tells her to stay where she is, and as he makes to leave, the phone rings again but he ignores it. He goes to the bookstore and sees her sitting outside in a corner of the street. He goes to her and tells her to get in the car. Her face is covered with a towel. When she lifts it, there is blood on it. Takashi drives back home and they get out. She sits at the bottom of the stairs and when Takashi asks her why, she says that she wants to be alone for a while. He tells her to go up and just then sees the blood. He tells her he's going to the pharmacy and asks her to wait for him upstairs. His nosy neighbor asks Akiko why she is there. She asks if she isn't Takashi's granddaughter. She mentions that Akiko looks just like her mother when she was young. Also says that after what happened nothing was ever the same, but it was all in the past. Then she asks Akiko if her mother is around too. Akiko replies that she is not. Then the woman asks why she is talking like that. Akiko tells her that she has a toothache. The woman advises her to gargle with salt water. She tells Akiko that she saw her leave with Takashi in the morning but then he came back alone. She said she had something to ask him but she had barely spoken to him when he got annoyed. She adds that he looked at her though and she blushes. She says Takashi has refused to look at her or even say hello recently. She claims she just wants him to park his car a little bit further back. She asks if Akiko is staying long and she says she isn't sure yet. The woman asks if her mother didn't come to visit her dad. She complains that people don't visit their elders anymore. She says that she is not married and doesn't have kids. She tells Akiko that she'd have loved to marry Takashi but he only had eyes for his wife. Takashi returns with medicine. They go up and he volunteers to heat up her soup, but then he remembers that she doesn't like it. He decides to warm up milk for her instead. He goes to her and asks her to show him the injury. He tells her it will swell if it isn't disinfected. The doorbell rings, and when he checks, it is Naoki at the door. He yells and screams for them to open the door. The movie ends as Takashi goes to the window to see what Naoki is doing. An object is thrown through the window and Takashi suddenly falls as the window shatters. He doesn't get up afterwards. What do you think about this movie? Share your opinion with us in the comments section below. Please subscribe and turn on the notifications for our daily uploads. See you in the next videos and thanks for your support.